Good morning, beautiful people of Abuja. How we doing today? It's 11 o'clock, it's Saturday morning, and what does that say? It's time for the Genius Kids Show. Are you ready? Hope your week went well. Mine did, and I'm happy to be spending this time with you. So, welcome to the Genius Kids Show. The Genius Kids Show is the show where we discover ways to ignite the genius in your child, because on this show, we believe that every child is a genius. Every child has a genius in him or her. So, are you ready for today's show?
Yes.
Okay, I have with me here my usual guests. So, I'll let them introduce themselves to you. Hello, let's meet you, baby girl.
My name is Cinderella Olivia Ibirim.
Hi, Chimelum. How are you doing today?
Fine.
Hope you had a good week.
Yes.
Good to have you on the show. Welcome. Can we meet you?
My name is Chibueze Ibirim.
Hi, Chibueze. How are you doing today?
Fine.
It's so good to have you on the show. And I remain your Genius Kids host, Genevieve Duruiheoma. And remember, children, you can always call me Miss Genny. So today, we'll be reading an interesting story, an all-time favorite, the story of Cinderella. Yes, and if time permits, we shall also take a Nigerian folk tale. You know, all those stories about the tortoise and the lion, all the stories. We'll be taking one if time permits. So, are you ready to have fun? If you are, grab a seat, sit still, listen up, and gather everybody around you. I'm going to give you time to get your friends, your mommy, your daddy, everyone around you. Get them to stay around the radio now and get your book and your pen, because you may need to take down some points. I want you to answer my questions when I ask you. All right? So we'll be taking a very short break. When we return, we'll start the story. But only one little duck came back. Hello, my beautiful friends over there. It's now time for us to read the story. You're still onto the radio, onto the Genius Kids Show on Radio Maria 91.3 FM. And like I said earlier, we'll be reading the famous story of Cinderella. The version I'll be reading is that of the Ladybird Tales. Ladybird Tales. So let's get to it. Are we ready?
Yes.
Now, let's begin. Cinderella, as retold by Vera Southgate. Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Cinderella. Her mother was dead, and she lived with her father and two stepsisters. Cinderella's stepsisters were fair of face, but because they were bad-tempered and unkind, their faces grew to look ugly. They were jealous of Cinderella because she was a lovely girl, and so they were often unkind to her. The stepsisters made Cinderella do all the work in the house. She worked from morning till night without stopping. Cinderella not only did all the housework, but also helped her sisters to dress. She cleaned their shoes, brushed their hair, tied their ribbons, and fastened their buckles. The sisters had many fine clothes, but all Cinderella had was an old dress and a pair of wooden shoes. After she had worked until she was weary, Cinderella had no bed to go to. She had to sleep by the hearth in the cinders. That was why her stepsisters called her Cinderella. And that was why she always looked dusty and dirty. Now it happened that the king arranged a great feast for his son. The feast was to last 3 days, and on each evening there was to be a grand ball. All the beautiful young girls in the country were invited in order that the prince might choose himself a bride. Cinderella's stepsisters were invited to the feast. Cinderella was not invited. Everyone thought that she was her sister's maid. On the evening of the first ball, Cinderella had to help her sisters to get dressed. Cinderella thought of how she would like to go to the ball, and tears began to run down her face. I would like to wear a beautiful dress and go to the ball, said Cinderella. A fine sight you would be at the ball, laughed her stepsisters. When they had left, poor Cinderella sat down and cried. Suddenly, she heard a voice saying, "What is the matter, my dear?" There stood her fairy godmother, smiling kindly at her. "I would like to go to the ball," said Cinderella. "And you shall go, my dear," said the fairy godmother. "Dry your eyes and then do exactly as I tell you. First, go into the garden and bring me the biggest pumpkin you can find," said the fairy godmother. "Very well," said Cinderella, and she ran off to the garden. She picked the biggest pumpkin she could find and took it to her fairy godmother. The fairy godmother touched the pumpkin with her magic wand. Immediately, it turned into the most beautiful golden carriage you can imagine. The inside was lined with red velvet. "Now, run and fetch me the mouse trap from the pantry," said the fairy godmother. Cinderella ran off to the pantry. She found a mouse trap on the floor. There were 6 mice in it. Cinderella brought the mouse trap to her fairy godmother. One touch of her magic wand, and the mice turned into 6 fine grey horses. Dum, 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 dum. "Now, fetch me the rat trap from the cellar," said the fairy godmother. Cinderella ran down the steps to the cellar. She found the rat trap with 1 rat in it and took it to her fairy godmother. One touch of the fairy wand and the rat changed into a smart coachman. Dum! We have a smart coachman dressed in red livery trimmed with gold braid. "Lastly," said Cinderella's fairy godmother, "I want you to bring me the 2 lizards that are behind the cucumber frame at the bottom of the garden." Cinderella ran into the garden, and there she found 2 small lizards. Cinderella's fairy godmother touched the lizards with her fairy wand, and they turned into 2 smart footmen. Boing, boing. There was now a golden coach lined with red velvet, drawn by 6 grey horses. There was a coachman in red livery to drive the coach, and 2 fine footmen to open the doors. Cinderella glanced down at her old tattered dress and her wooden shoes. "One more touch of my magic wand, my dear," said the fairy godmother. Then there happened the most wonderful magic of all. Cinderella found herself in a beautiful ball gown of pale pink silk. On her feet were dainty pink slippers. Cinderella's face was shining with joy. "Oh, thank you," she cried. "Enjoy yourself at the ball, my dear," said her fairy godmother. "But remember, you must be home before clock strikes midnight. For on the last stroke of 12, all will be as it was before, and yourself the ragged girl you were." The footman opened the door of the carriage. Cinderella sat down on the red velvet cushions. Then they set off. When Cinderella arrived at the palace, she looked so beautiful that her sisters did not know her. The prince thought that he had never seen such a beautiful princess. He took her hand and danced with her all evening. He never let her out of his sight. Cinderella had never spent such a wonderful evening in her whole life. Yet, she still remembered her fairy godmother's warning. Her fairy godmother's warning. At 11:45, Cinderella left the ballroom while the other guests were still dancing. Her carriage was waiting for her, and she was driven quickly home. She arrived at the door just as the clock was striking 12. On the last stroke of midnight, the coach became a pumpkin, the horses became mice, the coachman a rat, and the footmen lizards. Cinderella's ball gown vanished, and she found herself once more in her old grey dress and wooden shoes. When her stepsisters returned home, they could talk about nothing but the beautiful princess they had met at the ball. Cinderella listened but said nothing. All right, let's go on a short break. When we come back, we'll see how the story turns out. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. While on that short break, some of our guests joined us here in the studio. So we have with us Audrey, Gabriela, Tehila, and Zoe. All right, welcome. Now moving on with our story. So far we've seen how Cinderella is living with her stepmother and stepsisters, and how the stepsisters were unkind, and because of their unkind hearts their faces became ugly. And then the king is looking for a wife for his son, and he threw a royal ball. The stepsisters dressed in their beautiful dresses and went off, and Cinderella was sad. She needed to go. She wanted to go. And then something happened. Her fairy godmother appeared and turned a lot of things into magical things. And then she had a dress, she had a coach, she had coachmen, and she rode to the party, and she was the most beautiful at the ball. Then she had to hurry because the stepmother, the godmother, told her that at 12 o'clock everything would revert to what they were before. So she had to get home before midnight, and she obeyed and she got home, right? Now let's see what happens next. On the second evening, the stepsisters went off to the ball, leaving Cinderella sitting by the fire. No sooner had they gone than Cinderella's fairy godmother appeared again. Just as before, her magic wand produced the golden carriage with its coachman and footmen. This time, Cinderella's ball gown was even more beautiful than on the first evening. It was made of pale blue satin with floating overskirts of pale blue net, embroidered with silver thread. Her pale blue slippers were embroidered in silver. Once more, Cinderella's fairy godmother reminded her to be home by midnight. When Cinderella arrived at the ball in her blue dress, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The prince had waited for her, and he instantly took her by the hand. As before, he danced with no one but her. Cinderella was so happy that she almost forgot what her fairy godmother had told her. Suddenly, it was 5 minutes to 12. She left the prince and hurried out of the ballroom as quickly as she could. Cinderella's carriage was waiting, but they were only halfway home when the clock began to strike 12. On the last stroke of midnight, Cinderella found herself in her old grey dress and wooden shoes in the middle of a dark, lonely road. She had to run the rest of the way home as fast as she could. Even so, she had just seated herself on her stool by the cinders when her sisters returned from the ball. Once more, all the stepsisters could talk about was the beautiful stranger with whom the prince had danced. On the evening of the third day, Cinderella's fairy godmother appeared as soon as the stepsisters had left. When her fairy godmother touched her with the magic wand, Cinderella found herself in the most splendid and magnificent gown. It was made of silver and gold lace. On her feet were sparkling glass slippers. Cinderella was so delighted that she hardly knew how to thank her fairy godmother. "Enjoy yourself, my dear," said the fairy godmother, "but do not forget the time." When Cinderella arrived at the ball in her dress of silver and gold, she looked so magnificent that everyone was speechless with astonishment. The prince danced with no one but Cinderella all evening. Cinderella was so happy that she forgot about the time. Suddenly, the clock began to strike 12. Cinderella rushed out of the door in such a haste that she lost one of her slippers. The prince ran after her and saw the slipper. He picked it up. It was small and dainty and made entirely of glass. By the time Cinderella reached the place where her carriage had been, it had disappeared and she was in her old clothes. This time, she had to run all the way home. The prince looked everywhere for her but could not find her. He still did not know her name, but he had fallen in love with her and he was determined to marry her. So the next morning, the prince took the glass slipper to the king and said, "No one shall be my wife but she whose foot will fit into this glass slipper." The king's herald was sent through the streets of the city carrying the small glass slipper on a blue cushion. The prince himself followed, hoping to find the lady with whom he had danced. Every lady who had been to the feast was eager to try on the slipper. Each one hoped that the slipper would fit her and that she would marry the prince. Many ladies tried to squeeze their feet into the slipper, but their feet were too large for such a dainty shoe. At last, the herald, followed by the prince, came to Cinderella's house. Each of the stepsisters was determined to squeeze her foot into the tiny slipper so that she could marry the prince. But they both had large, ugly feet. Even though they struggled, neither one could force her foot into the slipper. At last, the prince turned to Cinderella's father and asked, "Have you no other daughter?" "I have one more," replied the father. Then the stepsisters cried out, "She's much too dirty. She can never show herself, please." But the prince insisted, and so Cinderella was sent for. Cinderella seated herself on her stool, drew her foot out of her heavy wooden shoe, and put it into the slipper, which fitted like a glove. When Cinderella stood up and the prince looked at her face, he cried out, "This is my true bride!" At that moment, Cinderella's fairy godmother appeared and turned her once more into the beautiful princess. The old grey dress became a velvet gown. The prince lifted Cinderella onto his horse and rode away with her. The stepsisters were horrified to discover that Cinderella was the beautiful princess who had been at the 3 balls. They were so angry and they were pale with rage. At the palace, the king arranged a magnificent wedding for the prince and Cinderella. All the kings and queens and princes and princesses in the land came to the wedding. The wedding feast lasted a whole week. And so, Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after. The end. Hope we enjoyed the story.
Yes.
Okay, our time is ticking fast. We shall go on a very short break. When we come back, we'll read our second story for the day. See you shortly. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. That was a beautiful story of Cinderella. Now down to our folk tales. Today we shall be reading the story Why the Tortoise Has a Bald Head. Why the Tortoise Has a Bald Head. So it's written by Adebayo Adebite. Once upon a time in the land of the animals, Tortoise's wife was feeling ill, so she called her husband and said to him, "Please go to my mother's house. Tell her I have pains all over my body. She will give you some drugs that I can use to ease my pain." Tortoise went to his mother-in-law's house to get the drugs. When he got there, his mother-in-law was cooking yam pottage. Even though the pottage was not ready to eat yet, it was already giving off delicious aroma that was making the tortoise's mouth to water. The tortoise loved yam pottage. In fact, it was his favorite meal. However, he did not want to look like a glutton in front of his mother-in-law, so he tried his best to ignore the aroma of the food and deliver his wife's message. His mother-in-law replied, "Don't worry, I have the drugs that your wife requested for here. I'll go and get it for you now. But I have some yam pottage on the fire and it's almost ready to eat. If you can wait for a few more minutes, then you can have some before you go. No thanks, said the tortoise. I don't think I can wait for that long because I just had breakfast, so I'm full as it is. The woman tried in vain to persuade the tortoise to wait until the pottage was ready, but tortoise refused. So she shrugged and went inside to fetch the drugs that the tortoise's wife had asked for. It was then that the tortoise started to regret not agreeing to his mother-in-law's yam pottage, because the pottage was nearly ready now and the aroma was so profound that the tortoise could barely think straight. But he was still feeling too ashamed to tell his in-law that he had changed his mind. He was still thinking of what to do when his mother-in-law returned with the drugs. That was when the tortoise got an idea. He said to the mother-in-law, I just remembered that my wife said she wants some leaves of the kola nut tree to chew as she takes these drugs. Sorry, I forgot to mention it before. Of course, Tortoise's wife did not ask him to collect any kola nut leaves. It was only a lie to get rid of his mother-in-law so that he could steal some of the pottage. The woman went to get the kola nut leaves, and the tortoise quickly ran to the still boiling pot of pottage. Unfortunately, he had no plate to scoop the pottage into, so he scooped the fiery hot pottage into his cap and used it to cover his head as normal. He immediately began to regret his decision, though, because the piping hot pottage started to burn his head. In distress, he called out to his mother-in-law, who was still looking for the kola nut leaves in the orchard. Ma! I have to go now. I have to go. Something important just came up. The surprised mother-in-law called back. Are you okay? Aren't you going to take the kola nut leaves anymore? No, ma, I just remembered. I'll get it on the way. I have something very important to attend to. Please, see you later. Bye. By this time, the tortoise was already sweating profusely and hurting from the literal fire in his cap. Tortoise literally flew out of his mother-in-law's house to his home. He was sweating buckets and his head felt like it was being dipped into a volcano. He did not stop to talk to anybody on the road, and he did not respond to any greeting on the road, unlike Tortoise, who was normally sociable and friendly. At last, the tortoise got to his house. He could barely even give the drugs to his wife before he went to dunk his head into a large bowl of water. However, in the time between his mother-in-law's house and his house, the hot yam pottage had completely burned all of Tortoise's hair down to his scalp. By the time he removed his head from the water, it was as bald as an egg. From that day on, the tortoise never had hair, and his hair never grew back, and he has remained bald-headed. So bad. But that's the end of our story. Hope we enjoyed the story.
Yes.
So now we shall be going on a short break. When we return, we shall open the phone lines for our guests at home to call us in and tell us what they learned from either the story of Cinderella or how the tortoise grew bald. The number to call is 081 084 47518. Again, I take it 081 084 47518. After the break, call us and tell us what you learned from the story. See you later.
Welcome back, my beautiful listeners. I'm expecting to hear from you this morning. Call us and tell us what you learned from the story of Cinderella and the story of the bald-headed tortoise. Now, the number to call is 081 084 47518. We have a call. Hello, good morning. Morning. Please, can you tell us your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Ibrahim.
Okay, Mr. Ibrahim, welcome to the Genuis Kids Show.
Now I am calling from Suleja.
Suleja. Oh, that's good to know. All the way from Niger State. Welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
What I learned for the story is that anybody that is through the do a longer throat, you go quick die or you quick get sickness.
Exactly.
What I learned with the story.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. Thanks for
Yeah,
calling. Bye.
Yes, one.
Mr. Ibrahim has told us that it's good for us to put a hedge on our appetite. Let's not go because somebody has food, your eye is in their pot. In fact, your eye will follow their hand from the plate to the mouth. Do you want some? No, I'm full. But your eye is tracing them. Mr. Ibrahim just said, let us not be gluttons. Let's not have long throats. Let's learn to control our appetite and our craving for food. Okay? Thank you, Mr. Ibrahim. Thanks for calling and dropping that brilliant lesson from the story of the bald-headed tortoise. So, for our guests here in the studio, I have some questions for us. Let's see if we even listen to the stories. For those at home, remember the number to call is 081-084-47518. Again, I take it 081-084-47518. Call us and tell us what you learned from either of the stories. Now, how many days did the ball last? How many days did the ball last? How many days did the ball last? Tahila, tell us. Do you know?
3 days.
3 days. That's correct. Well done. Good job. Now, how did Cinderella get ready for the ball? How? She had tattered clothes. She was dusty and dirty. So how did she get ready for the ball? Chibueze, tell us.
Her fairy godmother came and helped her.
Good. Her fairy godmother came and helped her. So how did the fairy godmother help her? How? Audrey, tell us.
By giving her brand new clothes.
By giving her brand new clothes. Did she buy the clothes? How did that clothes come about? Zoe, tell us.
The clothes came about by her fairy godmother. When Cinderella listened to what her fairy godmother said and obeyed and remembered the time and everything, that's how she got her coat and coachmen and footmen.
Okay, very brilliant. She just pointed out an important lesson from the story. The story emphasizes the need for us to take instructions, to listen. The fairy godmother told her, "Get me the pumpkin," and she did. Hello, good morning. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, good morning. What's your name?
Muna Chimso.
Hi, Muna. How are you doing today?
Thank you.
Okay, did you listen to our story?
Heard the story.
Okay.
The 2 stories that.
Hi, Muna. Speak on. I'm listening. Hello,
Okay.
are you there?
I just learned moral lessons from the 2 stories
Okay.
that you just said.
All right. So tell me, what did you learn from the story of Cinderella?
I learned that it's not good to be jealous and stingy.
Wow. So who was jealous and stingy in that story?
Ma'am?
Who was jealous in the story? Okay, tell me what you learned from the second story. The story of the tortoise and how he got bored.
Okay. It's not good to if you want to eat something, say you want to eat. Not like the tortoise did and say that he doesn't want to eat.
Yes.
And he put the pot on his head and his head got bored and his head never grew again.
Exactly. If you want a thing, say it. Okay? Thank you so much, Mona Chimso. Such a brilliant girl. Thanks for calling. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. So Mona Chimso just told us something. From the first story, she learned that's the story of Cinderella, that it's not good to be. What did she tell us?
She said that it's not good to be stingy.
To be stingy and what?
Jealous.
So who was stingy or who was jealous in the story?
Her
stepsisters.
The stepsisters were jealous. Why were they jealous? Why? Why would they be jealous of Cinderella? Yes, can I hear you?
It is because their mother died and it's only their father was taking care of her. So that is how the stepmother used Cinderella as a maid.
Yeah, okay. Cinderella's mom died and they were then treating her unkindly. They became jealous of Cinderella when they found out that Cinderella was the princess that the prince was dancing with. They were unkind to Cinderella from the start. They didn't treat her nicely. And so when they now found out that Cinderella was that beautiful princess, they became jealous of her. Is jealousy good?
No.
All right, then from the second story, Mona Chimso told us that she learned that it's not, if you want a thing, you should say it. Okay?
Yes.
Yeah. If you want a thing, you should say it. What other lessons can we pick out from the story of the bald-headed tortoise? Who knows? Okay, yeah? Tahila?
That it's always good to listen to what I tell you. When you get there, don't lie to someone that you don't want that thing at that time. But you want it when the person goes out to steal it. It's not good.
So many lessons in this thing. So many lessons. Number one, listen, focus on your mission. His mission was to go and get medicine. He went there, something will not let him concentrate. That was his first offense. The second thing, he wanted it. He was hungry, but he lied. I just had breakfast. I'm not hungry at all. But inside his heart, he wanted it. So he pretended. He was pretentious, which is not good. And lastly, he stole. All these three lessons Tahila has told us. So we see, let's not be like Mr. Tortoise, who wants a thing but would lie about it because you don't want to appear a glutton. It's better you ask for a thing than to steal the thing. Then if it is not appropriate at all to ask, hold yourself. If you've had food, you don't have to go wanting what every other person has, right? So
yes.
If you must ask, if you must have that thing, if indeed you're hungry and you want to have some, and it's okay to want that thing at that situation, you shouldn't go about asking strangers for things. But in this case, this is his mother-in-law, so it's okay to take food from there. If you go to your grandma's house and grandpa's house and they offer you something, it's okay to have it, isn't it?
Yes.
It is. But when they now ask you, oh, Tahila, do you want some? Zoe, do you want some chimelum chibi? Do you want some? Audrey and Gabriella, come and have food. No, I'm not hungry, Grandma. I'm okay, I'm full. It's okay. They'll not leave. When they go to gist outside, you now sneak in and steal. Is that good?
No.
That is exactly what the tortoise did. And he paid with his
head.
Thank you. He paid with his hair. All right, so what color of dresses did Cinderella wear on the first, second, and third days? Who can tell me? All right, Gabby, right?
On the first day, she wore a pale blue dress. On the second day...
Hold on, please hold the thought there. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. How are you?
This call is now being recorded. Hello, this is Hello.
Hello, good morning. What's your name?
My name is Precious.
Hi, Precious. How are you doing today?
I am fine, thank you. How about you?
I'm very well, Precious. So, Precious, what did you learn from our stories this morning?
I learned that the tortoise was to eat something very bad. And he learned his lesson at the end. Thank God.
Precious, you're making everybody here chuckle. Is that your real voice, Precious?
Yes, it is.
Okay, I believe you, Precious. So, you were telling us something about the tortoise. I was carried away by your voice. So now tell us, what did you learn from the story of the tortoise? Hello, Precious. Are you still there?
Yes, I am still here.
Okay, so what did you say you learned from the story of the tortoise?
The tortoise did not listen to the family.
Okay, the tortoise did not listen to his wife. I didn't get the lesson from the story. Call us back, okay? Call us and tell us what you learned from. Call us and let us know what you learned from the story of the tortoise and his bald hair. All right? What does it mean to be bald? Who knows? What does it mean when you say he has a bald head? What do you mean? What do you mean? Hold on. You're still answering a question we've not concluded. So let's hear from Tehila. What does it mean to be bald?
To have no hair.
To have no hair. Is it just maybe you go to the barber shop, you cut your hair and it's low? Does that mean it's bald?
No.
So I want you to describe it properly. When you say a thing is bald, what do you mean? Yeah? No hair. You're correct, but who can help her describe it properly? Yes? Okay, Tehila.
As in, like when someone boils your head, the thing never grows again. It just remains how it was.
Very beautiful. A bald hair is like smooth. It doesn't grow back. If you just cut your hair, it will grow back. But when it's bald, it is smooth. All right? We have a call. Let's take it quickly. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Morning. How are you doing today?
I'm fine.
What's your name, please?
It's Chimamanda.
Hi, Chimamanda. Good to have you on the show today. So tell me, what did you learn from either of the stories?
From the tortoise, I learned that it's not good to steal.
It's not good to steal because stealing has consequences. Even if you don't get caught, you get to pay for it someday. Remember, every day is for the thief, one day is for the owner of the house. Beautiful one, Chimamanda. Thank you so much. Any more lessons?
No.
All right. Thanks for calling. Love you always.
Love you too.
So you heard Chimamanda, it's not good to steal. I hope none of us here steals. Do we steal?
No.
Do we steal?
No.
Stealing is what? What is stealing? You have to know what it is before you say you don't steal. What is even stealing? Chibaze, tell us.
Stealing means to collect something that is not your own.
Stealing is taking something that doesn't belong to you. Very correct. Chimelong, what is stealing?
Stealing is something that
Okay, go ahead. Stealing is what?
Stealing is when you steal something without permission.
Okay, stealing is when you take something without permission. Very correct. So who else? Okay, Tahila, tell me.
Stealing means to take someone's thing, like take someone's snacks when the person is not around. You not even ask the person, and you don't know the person from anywhere.
That's very correct. Stealing is taking something from a person when the person is not there and can't see you. All right. How about you, Zoe?
Stealing is when you take something that doesn't belong to you and you don't take permission, and after all you didn't still say the truth and they put it on another person's head, and then after you take it, it is now called stealing.
Yeah. You see the chronology of stealing. You first take it. You pretend you didn't take it. And when they ask who did it, you lie. You see what stealing leads to? Stealing will make you lie because you don't want to be caught. Who took it? I don't know. I think I saw Audrey pass by. Don't ask Audrey, come here. So it's you that took it. And then you're there, I escaped it. You didn't escape nothing. Let's take this call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Are you there?
Hello, good morning.
Morning. What's your name?
My name is Moses Udochukwu.
Hi, Moses. How are you today?
Please, can I answer the question for stealing?
Okay, yes, of course you can, but step away from your radio set, okay? Just step away a little from the radio.
Okay.
Right. So, what is stealing?
Stealing means to take something without the permission or knowledge of the owner and keep it.
Did you write a dictionary? Wow. This is so brilliant. Very beautiful and articulate definition of stealing. Very well done, Moses. That's a brilliant one, okay? Thanks for calling. Bye. Love you. Stealing is to take something without the permission or knowledge of the owner. Stealing is never good, whether you're caught or not. Whether you're caught or not. Was the tortoise caught?
Yes.
He wasn't caught. His mother-in-law didn't catch him stealing. He was not seen, but he still paid for it with his hair. So when you steal, it doesn't matter if you're caught or not. You will still get to pay for it someday, okay? So it's not good to steal. I hope we don't steal. And when you see somebody that steals, what do?
You stop the person.
You stop the person.
Because if you keep quiet, you have joined. Do you know?
Yes.
You see somebody that steals, say, don't talk. Here, take small, let's share it. You know, somewhere, I'm not the one that stole it, but you know about it. And then they ask, who did this? And you shut up. You have connived. You have become a partner in crime. So let's not steal and let's not condone stealing, because stealing has consequences. Stealing has what?
Consequences.
All right. You were telling us about the different color of dresses Cinderella wore on the different ball days. So you told us about the pale blue dress. What other color?
Then the second dress was a pale blue dress with a silver thread. And then the third...
You've not told, you just repeated, you said pale blue dress. Which other one? Which other? So we have blue. Which other color?
The pale blue. The first one was the blue dress, and then the second one was the pale blue dress with a silver thread. And the third dress was a velvet gown with gold and silver laces.
Very beautiful attempt. Almost the correct answer, but you missed the day one. I think she wore something different on the first day. Who knows what color of dress Cinderella wore on the first day? Who knows? Who knows? Nobody? Okay, I'll read something out quickly. Oh, all right. Tahila, tell us, what color of dress did Cinderella wear on the first day?
She wore
She?
a yellow and silver dress.
Cinderella found herself in a beautiful ball gown of pale pink silk. On her feet were dainty pink slippers. So what color did she wear on the first day?
A pale pink dress.
A pale pink dress, okay? On the second day, she wore a pale blue dress. And on the third day, she wore the silver and gold dress.
Yes.
All right. So, who can tell me what the fairy godmother used to create the magical entourage that accompanied Cinderella to the ball? What and what? Okay. Yes, Chibese.
2 lizards.
What did the lizard turn into?
The 2 lizards became into footmen. 2 footmen.
2 footmen. All right, that's a brilliant one. Who else knows what was turned into what? Yes, Tahila, tell us.
She used a giant pumpkin.
A giant pumpkin, yeah, that's correct. So what did the giant pumpkin turn into?
It turned into a bow dress.
Not quite. Yes, Zoe, tell us. What did the giant pumpkin turn into?
It turned into a pale pink dress.
Almost, but not correct. Chibeza, what did the giant pumpkin turn into?
It turned into a carriage.
That's correct. It turned into a golden carriage. Well done. So with what did the magic... I almost said the answer. With what did the fairy tale... What am I saying? With what? If I'm looking at me, you're making me forget and now you know the answers. With what did the fairy godmother turn all these things into the... entourage with which the princess went to the ball. With what did she? Who do I ask? Who hasn't spoken in a while? All right, you.
Magic wand.
The magic wand. That's correct. Now, what is a ball? The king organized the ball for his son to choose a wife. What is a ball? They carried a big football there. So who knows what a ball is? Who knows what a ball is? Gabriela, tell us.
A ball is a grand event whereby people come to. A ball is a grand event whereby people come to celebrate things like the king hosted for his prince.
Yeah. She has a perfect idea of what a ball is. First of all, it is an event. A ball is what? An event. A ball is what? An event. Who else has another definition of what a ball is? Yeah?
A ball is like where plenty people go, most especially women, like where people choose who to marry.
A ball is where people choose who to marry. Well, yes, people go to all one there to find people to marry. She's not wrong. And in this particular story, the king actually organized the ball so that the prince could choose a wife. Yeah, but that doesn't define what a ball is generally. So what is a ball? Chibeze?
A ball is an event where people come together to dance. To dance is a formal party where people come together to dance with each other.
Very correct. A thing that distinguishes a ball from many other parties is because people dance at the ball. Okay? So, do you know what these big dresses we wear? That's why they call it ball gown, ball dresses. So that's the typical attire, the costume people wear to the ball, and they dance at the ball. Everybody's standing and everyone is dancing, and that's why the stepsisters were like, "Who is this stranger that the prince is always dancing with? Who is this stranger that the prince is always dancing with?" So I hope we have learned something very good today. We have learned what a ball is, and then we have learned the lesson not to steal, the lesson to be focused on our assignments.
And not to lie.
Not to lie. And then from the story of Cinderella, we have learned to be good, because if you're nice, good things will come to you. Cinderella was good and her fairy godmother helped her. And then eventually the prince found Cinderella because he found her shoe. That's correct. All right. This is where we draw the curtain for today. And this is saying thank you very much to our beautiful guests here in the studio. Thanks for making our time and coming on the Genius Kids show. Gabriela, you won our prize the other time and your presence is here. We'll hand it over to you right after today's show. All right? So see you again, same time, same station next week for another exciting time on the Genius Kids show. We love you. Do not forget that I love you. Bye-bye.